today's episode, we are going to be covering two different topics. It is going to be conspiracies and paranormal, but I'm not alone. I also have a guest here today, Seth. And welcome to the show.
It's great to be on.
Yes, Seth, and I understand that you also have your own podcast, your own thing that you do. You want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, it's called Seth's Alkahest. It's basically a podcast I made so I can rant, so I don't mess up all my personal relationships. So that's what that is, and yeah, it's fun. I just kind of at the grindstone, but it's fun.
Nice, nice. That's what we're all podcasters. I think that's all we're doing right now. Is just grinding it out and everything like that. So
Yeah.
great to have you on. We're going to talk some conspiracies. We're going to talk some some paranormal stuff, which I'm kind of excited about. We actually do. One of our co-hosts, her name is Ro. She is all about the paranormal. I wish she was here because she would just be eating it up and everything like that. She has a bunch of stories herself, and she's not like a. This is gonna sound bad, but she's not like a weird person where she's like has like every ghost experience that you can think of, but she's had a handful and everything like that. I wish she was here. She'd really like it.
I think I heard one of them. I did some research on your podcast, and there was one about women dying in childbirth and haunting the is that the right one?
I don't think so. That's gonna
maybe it's not even your podcast. No, I'm pretty sure you were on it, and there was a woman on there that was talking about I think it was a type of ghost in India or somewhere, and it was women that died in childbirth and something like that. I caught the gist of it, but yeah, it was a snippet.
Okay, yes, that was her. Okay, now that you say that, we have a bunch of episodes. Like they're all starting to like mix together. But
yeah,
I think she did. Oh, what was it? I think that might actually been the ghost episode that we did.
yeah.
But yeah, we'll talk about ghosts in a bit. First, let's start conspiracies. I covered Disney. What did you cover? So our audience is kind of aware before we hop into this.
The government taking Air Force pilots and supposedly stopping their heart because the harmine that they were injecting them with was they were getting desensitized to it because. Do I just go or because I'm just gonna like spell out my entire thing. But so the idea is that these pilots and you can call these pockets in the government like deep state. You can call it the military industrial complex, and there's pockets of crazy people with influence and power that run different programs, kind of like how MK Ultra started. Like it wasn't that like the entire agency knew about it. It was like a select few that like kind of started this trial anyway. And the idea is that they were trying to talk to the Clockwork Elves to get some high technology plans, and since it's the only thing you can permeate between these realms, the only thing you can bring back is information. And supposedly they were doing this so often that these guys were getting burned out, and they had to do all kinds of different things. One was like stopping the heart and having like respirators on them, injecting them with all these different compounds, talking to like high elves, clockwork elves, whatever you want to call them, jesters, and then bringing back information so that they can siphon off our tax dollars and create a breakaway civilization and leave us in the dust. So. That's what I mean.
There's a lot to unpack with everything that you just said,
and I couldn't find the original thing where the thread of truth that all of this hangs on is on what are the methods and mechanisms that this got out of the government supposedly, and I can't find that. And if anybody makes a really cool Reddit article or whatever and then deletes it, shame on you. But anyway.
Right. You know what? Let's just start with yours because okay. I'm invested now. Like I'm very intrigued, and I think our audience is too, with what everything that you had just said. So let me try to break this down on how I interpreted that. Was that there was a program that the government had funded through the Air Force,
Mhm.
and it was a way to talk to like interdimensional beings
Yes.
or something
Yes.
on the lines of that, and they killed them off,
No,
or
no, no. The idea was that they were the drugs only there's like windows of time that the drugs can be used on a particular individual, and the
yeah,
connection to the other side gets kind of, for lack of a better word, desensitized, and it's a uh, what you would want in this. Do you want me? I'll just go ahead and just get into it. So
yeah, go
what you
for it.
would want in this hypothetical program is that you would want to send elite guys in that knew the drill, that knew kind of what was going on, because like how are you going to convince someone to go to like some other realm and bring back information? So the idea is that these particular individuals were valued because with the amount of times they did it, they had more experience, and it's easier to have really experienced people go into these hyper realms uh, than teach new people this thing. The only problem is the more they do it, they learn more, but the downside is that the drugs won't have the same effect, the same tether to the other side. So, so the idea would be they go in, they get all this information, and since you can only bring back information from these realms, you can't bring back anything physical because it would, and the way I like to uh, think of this is, um, oh, it's a really good example in Interstellar, the Christopher Nolan film, where
Okay.
they're going and then so like how do you conceptualize another dimension, and there was one thing where she was saying like love could be a mountain in this other realm, and we think of it like because it's an emotion that doesn't necessarily follow every bit of logic in our world, like because you can love someone that's dead and they're not there but you still love them, how can that be? And that so to these other these people that make the thing that he was in, like the tetra whatever,
Yeah.
that they're in a higher plane, and the concept of love to us is a concept and a feeling or emotion, but in their reality, it's actually a physical point or space that can be walked on or seen or held or something like that. So, like whenever something is a like it is something that bleeds into our reality from a higher dimension. I forget who said this, but the best way of kind of thinking about it in our dimension is, okay, you've got an in and out, those old school paper in and out things on desks, like a secretary would
Hmm.
put in ins and outs for someone.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
if you were only in a two-dimensional space looking down, you only see the top, and there's a whole nother cubby below that thing. But to a two-dimensional being, they could only see a square from the top down. And inexplicably, in our dimension, to them, they would see something pass through and take something out from under it, but not be able to conceptualize it in their two-dimensional space. But us, it's no big deal because we understand height, width, and depth. And
yeah.
I think the fourth dimension in our space is absolutely time, because if you have a cube of a room and you say, where is that chair? You want to measure the height, width, and depth of the room to ascertain where that chair is. So
Mm-hmm.
the other thing is like, when is it? Because if someone goes in the room and moves it,
Oh,
there's a whole nother aspect to the dimensional measurements of where that chair is. So when is it? Where is it?
yeah.
So anyway, the same applies to beings. Have you ever read a book called I think it's called Flat World?
No, but it sounds interesting.
It's a novel. I believe a scientist. I read it when I was pretty young, but it's about a scientist that wrote this book, and it's called these. There are these two dimensional. It's all about two dimensional characters and how they interact with their world. Anyway, so what would it look like to us if we were to put ourselves in the position of like a two dimensional character seeing from the top down of this in and out thing? What would it look like to us? And to me, I've done various compounds in my life, and
Mm.
and there's some very strange things, and it's an interesting concept to think that our bodies are not antennae equipped to hear or see or sense a particular frequency, even though these dimensions exist. Our bodies normally don't hold the capabilities of measuring that. So it's interesting to think that a compound can get you into, call it a vibrational frequency, call it however you want to think of it, and uh, experience something piercing the veil into our dimension. So it's interesting. Like we have these recurring things like angels, demons, clockwork elves, jesters, uh, um, some what are the ones in Ireland? Like just elves, different things like that. And
Yeah.
so I kind of feel like over the entire course of human history, there's definitely a possibility of people either being born. One of the other interesting things is like schizophrenia and different things like that. I've
Mhm.
always wondered, like different people you see like talking to themselves on the side of the road or whatever. It's like every now and then I wonder, like, did they see a little bit too much of something? Because if I wonder like what would happen to me if I saw the truth, like the true scope of reality, if it would just absolutely break my brain and I would just be some random person babbling out somewhere.
I
Um,
t- Two things I want
yeah,
to bring up real quick.
yeah,
Is I've had the same thought process as you, as far as like with we take, I guess, like mentally, or what we would call, like, mentally challenged, or someone with a
hmm,
disability, so like autism, maybe schizophrenia or something like that. And it's just really weird how, like, autism, though, they're kind of almost operating like at like a knowledge or something, like, like they're very like hyper focused on like something, but like what
hmm,
they're focused on, or what they know, is just like they know a shit ton about. And we think of it as like a disability. Like, yes, maybe some like social cues are not there, maybe like socially they're not to where we would consider, maybe like in like our society, as normal. But what if it is the complete opposite? What if that is like the next step in like evolution, where it's like technically we take these, we're telling these people like, hey, there's something wrong with you, when actually maybe that's just the next step in evolution, where it's like socially, as like humans, we're starting to like get away from, like, being social creatures, and like maybe not social creatures, but like just that social aspect of what we consider to be normal, like that is no longer what it is. Like
yeah,
I've always thought about that, and it's like, what if we're the ones that are wrong and they're
right.
the ones that are right?
Yeah, what if we're outdated?
Yes, it's just, I find that to be crazy. And then the second thing is the drugs and everything like that. As far as it's, I've heard stories, or maybe not stories, but I've heard like, oh, who was it? I think it was either a musician or an artist who just got really into like, I forgot what drug it was, but it was something where it was like that's what they were saying, like they were operating like in a different, like they were seeing and like knowing, and just like,
I have a
I
few
don't know.
artists come to mind.
Yeah, maybe maybe that's a
Like
trend.
Jim Morrison, definitely.
Yeah, maybe
Who
that's
else?
who it is.
Yeah, well, that the end, that song used to be. You probably already know this, but that song used to be different. And they were at this dive club, and he was late, and they had they were not like that big right then, and his
Mhm.
buddies in the band had to go to Morrison's house and get him out of this LSD stupor. He was with these chicks, and he was barely coherent, and they drug him to the venue, and that's
Yeah.
where and they walked on down the hall. He took a pace from the ancient gallery, and he walked on down the hall. That's where that lyric comes from. It wasn't written before that improv night, and then that just became the song.
I honestly, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And his dad's involvement with the Gulf of Tonkin, and getting us into the Vietnam War and that
Mhm.
stuff. Like, because I believe his father was an integral part of the CIA. Um, I didn't prepare for this particular topic, so I can't like offhand just check that. But hey, I said it.
That's really interesting. I feel like that's kind of like that happens where it's like, but I also feel like though too that it's like whatever drug or you're taking and everything like that, it's supposed to like that's the side effects of it though, is like hallucinations, maybe like paranoia and everything like that. And is it that we are seeing, or that you're actually like tapping in to like another like dimension, or like something that we're not supposed to see? Or is it just messing with our brains and everything, where it's like, nah, you're really not? Like, what do you think?
That's the question. Okay, so when I was taking all kinds of different, I went through this really crazy phase between like 19 and 25, somewhere around in there. And
Yeah.
I had a friend. We would take a lot of different things, and it got kind of dangerous because we would take all the stuff that's been heard of, and then we started getting into research chemicals like
Mm-hmm.
2CI and all that. And so my opinion on it is one of the things we noted. I've always been fascinated with shared hallucinations,
Yeah.
because that would be the only thing that could say it's not necessarily wires getting crossed in the brain, or flooding, like all the psilocybin, for instance. It piggybacks off of serotonin receptor sites, and it
Mm-hmm.
acts as a serotonin modulator. And then you have things like cocaine and different other things that work more on the dopamine side of stuff. So is it that when you flood those pathways, um, there's signals that get crossed into your visual cortex? Because one side effect of some people taking, and I don't really necessarily believe in side effects. They're direct effects. If you're taking something, it's a direct effect of it.
Yeah.
So one of the things is that they'll start seeing audio, or vice versa, because you're starting, like, I'm sure you've seen that infograph that I forget which university published it when they were researching psilocybin. It was basically a control group, and then the neuroconnectivity of someone that's either microdosing or having high doses of psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms. So the it's interesting because the data shows that not only are all the connections from these different nodes in the brain uh, connecting where they wouldn't normally, the connections are thicker. And one of my favorite things to do is to microdose, because you don't, nothing crazy happens. You kind of teeter on that threshold. You're not having visual disturbances or anything like that. But in terms of productivity, it's great, and
Mm-hmm.
just the speed in which you think. But I don't know, man. But me and a buddy, we were tripping enough to where we were noticing, like, during and after the trip, we'd be like, "Did you see the words on that, or that particular pattern?" And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so
Mm-hmm.
it would get to the point where we were taking a bunch of stuff, and waiting for the hallucinations to kick in, and then we would stay. I remember we had a notepad on like a piano, and we were trying to, the words were coming up like this, and they were just like lifted off the page, and we were like, all right, you see that, right? And he was like, yeah. And then we were like trying to like touch it. It was crazy. We looked like it, like we'd lost our minds. um but that all ended. There was this one time we went to this guy's house where we were acquiring said substances, and
Mm-hmm.
uh he gave us what he said was isolated psilocybin, and I'm pretty sure it was it was just dirty drugs mixed up with who knows what.
Yeah.
And he was measuring the drugs with a pen cap, and then I was like, "Is that too much?" And he's like, "Ah, it's good." That was our scientific method.
Oh, jeez.
So we had set all the pills and the capsules on this old piano, and we had this. We were like, "All right, if it gets really bad, we're gonna watch Dumb and Dumber for the parachute, to because we
Oh,
like Dumb
okay.
and Dumber. It's funny. It could calm us
Yeah.
down." It
Yeah.
turned into a mad night. We wound up we wound up listening to the Gorillas. We had a playlist on, and I fell in love with Noodle's voice. And I was like by the speaker, and the sound I could. She was like there. It was, and then we put on Parliament Funkadelic's Maggot Brain, which was a bad idea. And this place had surround sound. So if anybody's ever heard Maggot Brain, just imagine you are tripping your balls off. It was like, I've seen the maggots in the mind of the universe, and I was not displeased. For I had to rise above it all, or drowned in my own shit. And then it would go silent. And we were listening to this on surround sound. And
Yeah.
when you're on mushrooms, you already everything is surround sound. So the voices were coming in and out, and it was like, and then the guitar. To this day, that song freaks me out whenever I hear it. I have this horrible association. Anyway, so I took, and like nothing at a certain point in the night wasn't happening to the amplitude of which I wanted it to happen, and
Yeah.
so without telling him, I went and took another thing. And he got mad because we didn't take it together, and he was like, "You already took that, blah blah blah." And so he took another one, and then we probably 15 minutes passed, or 20 minutes, something ridiculously small, but in our heads too much time had passed, and we
Yeah.
had inadvertently doubled the dose of this mystery whatever.
Oh
And
my God.
I remember that song going on, and it was just madness. And then we ran outside, and the gravel parking lot was static. It was like TV static below you. And go back in. That was too freaky. So I remember sitting on his chair, and the upper side. We didn't have no kind of lights like this where it was multicolored. It was just
Yeah.
normal light bulbs, and the ceiling started to lift kind of indefinitely that way, and the lights were all changing colors, just constantly changing colors. And then we put on Dumb and Dumber because we had passed the threshold. It was not good, and we put that on, and so Lloyd and whatever his name is are talking, and he's like, Lloyd, and his whole face uh, came out and then turned into these vibrating geometric figures. Anytime he talked, it was just like a split down the center with blocks. And as he spoke, like these cubes were just vibrating, and what he spoke didn't make any sense, but it was clearly Lloyd. And
Yeah.
yeah, so there was a lot of crying and screaming, and then I went home, and I drove to a Dollar General parking lot and parked and just started weeping.
Oh, jeez.
uh, yeah. But anyway, back to the point of if this is that was my example of what I've experienced, and I've tried other things like Salvia divinorum and different things like that, and it definitely seems like there is a possibility of us just picking up something. Now, in retrospect, a lot of the hallucinations I had definitely had to do with background information in my mind and preconceived notions on certain things that bled into those hallucinations.
Yeah.
But I definitely think there is something there. And I absolutely believe the government has been, or whatever government agency has been, testing the waters to see what. I mean, we know, like the movie Men Who Stare at Ghosts, there's been several programs that have been declassified where they were trying to understand the borders of reality, and especially with this new drug LSD and this and that, and understand the fabric of reality. And I honestly think if you're a superpower and you have these divisions, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you research everything that you possibly could to understand your place and how to get more leverage or whatever? Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I
So like
totally died. I totally went off on a.
no, that's totally fine. That is a-okay. You bring up a lot of good stuff there, and like one of the things that I want to piggyback off of is like the why would you not want to, as far as like a
Mhm.
superpower government and everything, and then the fact that there are, like what you said, there's declassified programs within the military where it's like, are you serious? That's what you guys, or that's what you were trying to do. So like
Mhm.
it's totally possible, and like I believe that the government probably right now even are doing things where like we either a can't comprehend it, or it's just like it's why would you spend your money on that? So like the whole, like the experimenting with like different chemical compounds and like trying to like get into a different universe, a different realm, things like that. That is 100% possible. Like I
Yeah.
believe that. So
Yeah.
it's why, yeah, the why wouldn't you want to? And then you got to think too that if like, okay, if the United States is doing something like that, who else do you think is doing that? Probably China, probably
Oh
Russia.
yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
and probably even more countries than that. Probably the UK, like just everyone, both our allies and both our enemies and everything like that, are the ones that we consider to be enemies. So it's just it's really interesting, and I think the ones that really messed around with it the most were the Nazis during
Oh
World
yeah.
War II,
Yeah.
and we talked about that I think on a previous show. I can't remember which one it was, but it was the fact that they would, and this was actually both for the Axis and the Allies, where they gave their version of meth to the soldiers to stay awake and to keep
Yes, they have.
fighting. And
Yeah.
it's just like it's crazy because then it makes you think like, all right, our government will do anything to like, to see and to win and everything like that. And even like the atomic bombs that they tested, they had soldiers like willfully this. They had by their own
Yeah.
will.
They were
they,
they were going willingly.
yes, thank you. um to like go and get exposure to this. And I
Hmm.
remember there was this happened in the UK where they were on a boat and they wanted to test like, okay, nuclear bomb in the ocean, what would happen to sailors, everything like that. And just a group of sailors on the boat or whatever, after the bomb had went off, like some of them, I the safety advice for them was cover your eyes with your hands,
Hmm.
and if you want to, you can look away or whatever. But some of the
Yeah.
soldiers like were staring not at it but in the direction, and they said it was so bright that they saw through their eyelids and they saw their hand. It was just like, are you serious?
Hmm.
And like they got so much exposure, and like a lot of them died young because of the
Yeah.
cancer and everything like that from the radio. So it's just kind of circling back and everything. It's just like it's crazy to think that like our governments would do that to their own people. So it doesn't surprise me if they're doing something secret like that, and it just hasn't been disclosed yet. So
Oh yeah. I mean, well, first off, we're herd. There are some people within groups of power that just look at us like cattle, and why?
mhm.
I mean, that. I mean, look at how Nazi Germany treated their prisoners. Like a lot of the medical breakthroughs that came out of the war was a
Yeah.
lot of experimentation on children in Auschwitz and different places, and then it continued. The small sliver that defected to Brazil. Um, or was it Chile or Brazil? It was down in South America,
Yes. Yep.
and
Yep.
they and some of those Nazi scientists continued their research on village children, and there's like some documentaries on those people that detail it. But this is yeah, the bomb thing is very interesting to me. My last podcast we actually spoke about this.
Oh.
My
Okay.
grandfather was part of the radiological health division when they were starting to develop the bomb at Oak Ridge here I'm in Tennessee, and
No way.
he was in the military, and they moved him around a lot. It was like New Jersey, New Mexico, Tennessee, and my mom still has all his certificates of all the different like Project Teapot and all these different weird code words and these certificates of what he did. And they were absolutely checking. They were dropping
I,
bombs in the. Oh, go ahead.
I I froze for a second. I don't know if you caught it or not,
Oh no, I
but
didn't. I totally thought you were right there.
sorry. The last thing I caught that was your grandpa moved around a lot. You were located in Tennessee. That was the last thing I heard.
Yeah. Okay. So we have I don't know if they're actively doing it. Oak Ridge still exists. I don't know
Mhm.
to what capacity they develop nuclear stuff. I think that they still uh, work with uranium or
Yep.
uranium refinement, but I'm not positive on that. But anyway, he was in the radiological health division while they were doing all those bomb developments, and I am like I'm a kid that was born like way late in my parents' life. So my parents, my grandparents are significantly older than me. And
Mhm.
he was involved in in the all of that stuff. And my mom still has I think this is the part you cut out. My mom still has the certificates of like Project Teapot and different things that he was in all the different. They had all these code words, so they would go to Nevada and drop a bomb, and that particular session would be called Project whatever. And
Yep.
his job was determine well, according to the official thing. I know some stuff is still classified, but the official narrative of what he did was that he would analyze what the radiation was doing to biology. So they would go out into the Pacific with these decommissioned destroyers that they were going to, sink anyway, and they would load them up with goats and all kinds of animals. And then they would drop a bomb in the center of all these boats kind of surrounding it. And then they would wait for, the fallout and everything. And then they would go in with these hazmat suits, drag the bodies off, and then figure out what exactly the radiation was doing. Yeah, pretty weird stuff. And I've heard that there were human experiments done where they were putting, I don't know where I heard this particular one, but I know at some point they were using like, what was that big thing, like the Spanish flu, or there was like a big thing that happened, or there was some big outbreak. But what they were doing with these people were they were secretly dosing them with nuclear isotopes in their IVs to see how quickly they would degrade. And yeah, so if you think that they're not like you're completely expendable to the greater machine, because these people that run these things, they're totally like, the greater, like these sacrifices are worth what our end goals are. That's I think how they rationalize.
Okay, so all right, so a couple of things.
Yeah.
First off, that's why nuclear war or like any sort of like when countries talk about using that always freaks me out. Like it's just like why? Like can we not? We all know what's gonna.
We just use bullets.
Yeah, that's right. Or our hands. I don't know. Just something besides that. Just like because we know the ramifications. We know, like, based on studies, based on World War II, like how we dropped the bombs on Japan. We know what's going to happen. We
Yeah.
like we understand it. We don't need to do that. And it's just like that's why like nuclear war is just like it's very scary and it's a very real thing. What was the other thing I was going to say? It was what was it? I can't remember. Can't remember what I was gonna say. It'll come back to me. And I'll like in our conversation, I'll just spit it out.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about nuclear warheads or whatever. The amount of collateral damage we've never developed weapons until the 20th century that just took out a whole bunch of innocent people, not just the soldiers. Like it's that's the reason we don't use nerve gas anymore. After I think it was World War II, everybody was like, if the wind goes the wrong direction, we all die too. So let's all. I love like war rules. Like hey, let's stick to these rules. Like, and they get in trouble. Like if one violates the agreed terms of how we're going to kill each other, the other side will get in trouble. That's hilarious to me. But there are weapons that are bad enough to where we all agree. Like, yeah, we shouldn't use that.
Yeah. So like the laws of war, I think it's called.
Yeah.
I do remember what I was gonna say. All right, I'll try not to forget it, but I'm on this tangent now.
Okay.
So like, it's it really is interesting what like the Geneva Convention and like the laws of war and everything like that, and like even like rules of engagement that soldiers have to follow. It's very interesting what someone or a group of people have considered like, no, you can't do this, but you can do this. So for instance, I think what is it? It's a weapon called the Mark 19. What it is it's essentially an automatic grenade launcher. So I don't know have you seen the movie Predator? I'm sure you have.
Oh yeah.
But there's a weapon on the front of Arnold Schwarzenegger's machine gun.
Yeah. They put them on the bottom of the M16s. Yeah.
Yes, and you can put like it's almost like a grenade round inside of it. You shut it, you pull the trigger, it lobs a grenade, right? Well, the army or the military has made a weapon called the Mark 19, and I know they used this at I believe the beginning of the surge of the Iraq War, and even in Afghanistan, but it was an automatic grenade launcher. It's called the Mark 19. So all those little rounds were belted together, and like it was just it's just like a little short gun, but like the soldier just presses the trigger down, and it just keeps lobbing these things. And I
Yeah.
think after like a year of them using that, I can't remember. I don't know if it was maybe more, but they're like, this causes way too much damage, and this is not okay. So it's like, well, you guys knew you knew what it was gonna do. Just like put two and two together. If you keep throwing these things, yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
happen. So it really was interesting how like yeah, like the nerve gas thing, the nuclear bomb, like yeah, like how what they say is not, and it's really interesting because it's war. It's war. It's
Yeah.
like it's the objective is to win against the other side. So you would almost think like, all right, hey, there is no rules. Like just go all out.
I
But
would
man,
think that if your aim is to wipe out the other opponent, there wouldn't be rules, but apparently there is.
yeah. Oh, I mean, I guess they're like part of the thing that they are doing though, which I'm kind of glad of, is civilian consideration, because I
Yeah.
think when the United States was over in Afghanistan, Iraq, I mean, even take Vietnam and everything like that, you had soldiers working through civilian populace. So it's like, okay, we can't just kill everybody, even though like that's some people's mindset, like just kill them all and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like you can't, and that's
Yeah.
I guess that's like a good thing that they did, like thinking about civilians and everything.
Yeah. Yeah,
Kind
and
of going,
we've had the issue with, I know on our side we've had the issue on some of the older wars of our guys going after civilians, because I
mm,
think Vietnam was such a special war that broke like that, because these guys went over there under this false assumption that they were, they're free to, the threat of communism and blah blah blah, and they went over there and expecting to have a parade when they got back, and everybody was spitting on them, and when
yeah,
they got, and part of it is the warfare was so different. The amount of trauma was so different from other wars that they just came back completely broken, and some of them snapped and did like horrible atrocities over there.
yep.
And so us having like the opinion of like, all right, we have rules is a good thing, but it's also like maybe we shouldn't invade just random places.
Yeah, right. You think that they would maybe do a little bit of, I mean, I don't know, like, so I feel like it's almost like, now this is another conspiracy,
Hmm.
but like 9/11, you look at what happened to that. That was the driving force behind invading Iraq and
Oh
Afghanistan.
yeah,
I think it was
yeah.
Afghanistan. What was it? I think it was Iraq first, and then it led into Afghan. But regardless of what it is, they needed a like, if you believe this is again the conspiracy, that they set everything up and that like they, the government like went into the towers and everything like that, like drove the planes into the towers, so
Yeah.
everyone in on like because it is a touchy subject because it hit home, like we'd been attacked on our soil, so you can see like, all right, hey, huge like support for the war and to go and invade, because you look at what's going on right now in the world, like with between Russia and the Ukraine. Like Russia just went into the Ukraine and like everyone is like, no, that's bad.
Hmm.
But if you look at their narrative and like what they're, because again, like the media and like the news, it's just so hard to like pick like, all right, who's actually telling the truth. And this is like,
Oh
we're going
yeah.
on a rabbit hole now, but it's just like Russia is saying the Ukraine has a bad Nazi problem, and that's why they went in. And then the Ukraine is like, no, we're fine. We want our own
Yeah.
land. Like, don't touch us. So
Yeah, it's
yeah, it's
weird. Like, and then you have like the QAnon people like zooming in on the soldiers'
yeah,
arms, like, "Oh, there's a swastika. See, we're
yeah.
doing, and it's like, ah, man,
It's,
the internet there. I love conspiracy theories, but there's a certain type of noise that I just have to check out from.
yes.
I can't deal with half of it. Like man, 9/11 is an interesting one because if you look back, Bush saying like, we never thought of
Oh,
planes being used as missiles. He's like, bro,
yeah,
you had an entire pamphlet for NATO to on how your countermeasures would be if this happened. Not only that,
yep,
it was shown that Kennedy was given plans to for us to do the same thing, remote control a plane and crash it and blame it on the Cubans, invade Cuba. And then Kennedy was like, I'm not doing that, which is probably one of the many reasons that got him killed. And then the other thing is like there all those declassified documents of what's his name? I forget who was the president at the time. But when Pearl Harbor happened, it did happen. The Japanese did do it, but it was known well beforehand, and the U.S. government allowed it to happen to get us into World War II. Like it was like, oh, this will rally our base, it will rally the citizens, and like we'll be able to invade and do this and do that, and that's what got us out of the Great Depression. It was manufacturing the war machines, like that. All those classic propaganda, all those posters where the government was encouraging people to grow hemp. They were like, please grow hemp, we need more rope, we need more stuff for parachutes.
Right.
They were like, you have at it. It's like, it's interesting, like when war times, it's like, oh, and it's true, unfortunately, but it absolutely got us out of the Great Depression, because there were people that had I mean, it was like my grandparents lived through the Great Depression, and it was a bad time. And so like the idea of I mean, that's when the military industrial complex really got its roots, like because all of the manufacturing, all of the planes, all of the bullets, all of the steel, everything that had to be manufactured got people in factories working, and revitalized the economy. But it's insane that that happened, and I think that we follow the same blueprint since then in smaller scenarios. We go in, the CIA causes some trouble, they put in a puppet of somewhere in South America, and then whenever they're having trouble with him and the people revolt, well then it's like, oh well, we need to go do this. And same thing in the Middle East, like there's always like an excuse. And it's interesting how certain places, like what was in Afghanistan, well, also the thing people have to ask themselves is like, where did Saddam's gold bricks go? Does anybody know? Those just didn't disappear. They didn't forget where those were. What happened to all the poppy fields where we have photos of our troops guarding poppy fields? And then where did all the opium production go to in certain pharmaceutical companies? Who was the biggest buyer of these poppy fields? Who capped off the oil wells? Who secured the lithium mines for our batteries? Like these places have natural resources, and then we just control them. So I mean, it's like, it's fair if you just look at the grand thing that comes out, it's always the same.
I think that's what it takes. Is I think it really does take just everyone, or just just you as a person, to step back, and then like try to like look at the big picture of everything like that. And you might like, and that's why like just doing your own research and just like really getting to like the roots of everything, it's good. And it's good to do your own research, gather information from like all aspects and everything like that, and to form your own opinions. I mean, I guess that's why you listen to our podcasts and everything like that, is because we provide that information for you. We do that research. But it's really it's crazy, because the things that you bring up was like all the resources and like everything like that. And then how even the CIA, and it's like there's conspiracies that the CIA had trained, who was it, Osama bin Laden, and everything like that, and like that they knew, like, hey, like they knew where he was and everything like that. And like after 9/11, there's I had covered this in a past episode, but they got his family that was here in the States. They flew them back to the Middle East. Like the CIA like snagged them up, and like it was like, how, like why are you doing that? Like, understand, like they had nothing to do with it, and they probably would get like ridicule and everything like that. But it's just like, why? Like there's no other reason why like the government would just pick up this family and take them over there, unless maybe that person was working for the CIA in some sort of like way. So it's just, when we look at like the possibilities and just like, could this really be? It's like, when, I don't know, like that's
yeah. I mean, you got to look at what are the connections the Bush family had to Osama's family. What did Osama's family, the Bin Laden family, what was where did they get their money? The money, there was contractor companies over there. Like there was a lot of all of the sudden, after everything was bombed, there was a lot of U.S. contractors all of a sudden in these territories. And the way I heard it, and I don't have these notes in front of me, but Bin Laden's family was integral. He was considered like the black sheep of the family. Like he was the kind of oaf that thought he was like this messiah or whatever that led this ragtag team of guys and whatever they were doing. And his family were they, from what I understand, were construction contractors. And then
Mm,
there was a lot of interesting deals of like between the Bush family had something to do with these contracts, and then there was another. I mean, then there's Halliburton and stuff like that. But
yeah.
I think my favorite comedy rendition of this is Arrested Development when George Senior gets caught subcontracting all of those all his like weird McMansions in and then he gets and that's one of the things he gets in trouble for. Uh,
I think a great movie that actually depicts all of this is Vice. It really like
Ice.
it's about Dick Cheney.
Oh
It's
yeah,
yeah, played
yeah,
by
yeah.
Christian Bale,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of goes into that's almost like a conspiracy movie within itself, but it just
Yeah,
kind of goes into like the life of Dick Cheney and everything like that, and like oh, what is it? It starts out like with the whole 9/11 attacks and everything like that.
yeah.
But like I think he had what was it? He was invested in BP oil or something like that. And like that was a reason to go. But it's like, wait, what? And it's like, yeah. And it's just like so when you actually start doing research and like what was it? I don't I hope this doesn't get like taken off because about
I
what
know,
I'm
right?
about to
It's like,
say.
oh man, is this how people get like just gonna? Oh, his podcast fizzled out. Meanwhile, you're like being put in a trash compactor.
Yeah, right. Well, it's the what was it? It was you see it a lot. All right, like so we're talking conspiracies. So obviously you can probably put together that I'm on a couple of conspiracy threads with Reddit, right? And I won't. The how can I say this so it doesn't get like well we don't monetize anything anyway, so it
Well,
shouldn't really matter.
just to preface it by like this is uh what do you say? You go I heard or
Yes,
I heard this theory
there we go.
or
So
this I heard this possible theory.
I heard this possible theory that okay, maybe if I phrase it like this. So there's a shot out right now that the majority of governments want everyone to get. Does that make sense? Okay,
Yeah.
so
Okay,
like
now I know why you're being careful. Okay. Yeah.
yes, that what was it? The manufacturer of this shot um he was the husband and then the wife works within one of the governments and she's like pushing for all of these policies and it's like they just make millions of dollars or probably even billions of dollars or whatever but it's like it's conspiracies like that where it's almost like the Dick Cheney thing where it's like a reason for him to go or to push troops into like the Middle East is because he has assets there or he has like he's invested in BP oil. So
Uh-huh.
it's just like when you start connecting dots or you start seeing like oh that makes sense. I think that's where like those conspiracies and just like
Yeah.
get
Well, I
going.
mean, it
Was
will
there?
be interesting how
Yeah.
history treats this particular controversial topic of now. It will be very
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah. It
Because
really will.
from what I've heard is that it's very interesting that these entities of this particular needle object are going after a particular age group to ensure and government approval to ensure yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to say it. To ensure that there's no lawsuits in the future, and
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
and also be. I mean, I don't care who falls on what side of this. I'm
Yep.
just saying, look at the money. The money is
Yeah.
so huge. The incentive is huge. And then we can
Yes.
also talk about like, there were promises made, and it turns
Hmm.
out those promises aren't exactly what this needly object does, and it's
Yeah.
just all very interesting.
Yeah, it really is. Like it's I think that I think that's why there's a lot of good conspiracies I think right now going around with that whole subject.
Hmm.
Whether again like on what side doesn't really matter. Like I think on both ends it's like you see just like all these crazy things that are coming out right now. So it really will be like maybe like 10, 20 years from now. It may even be longer to really see like okay, really what was or what is the truth behind everything. But
Yeah.
when we're talking conspiracies, there may never be a truth to it. There may always be this mystery, and that's what makes conspiracies, I think, so like good in their own way, and that's what makes people drive towards them is like there's always that unknown. Like, so we'll go back to 9/11, for instance, Building 7.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that? Like the no plane hit that, just a little bit of like debris or
Oh man,
fire.
the audio on the news broadcast is wild. Like you hear pull it, you hear them reporting on stuff right before it happens.
Yes,
And
yeah,
first off, everybody's seen a image of like what a plane fuselage looks like when it wrecks.
yep,
There's large pieces, and then the Pennsylvania site where we supposedly took down one and it crashed. There's just skid marks and burnt grass. There's no pieces. And also I was on, I believe it was Conspiracy Commons, our Conspiracy Commons, which is a pretty good up and coming conspiracy subreddit. And there was a video that was recently released, and now you can't tell what's real now with AI and all
oh
of the
my
different software. But
gosh,
there was a
yeah,
video released of a different angle of the Pentagon being hit, and there's no wings on this thing, and there's only like a few frames, kind of like the original image we were shown, but
is it
it's
like
like,
is it almost like shot from like a helicopter? It
yeah,
almost seems like.
it's at a distance, yeah.
Yes, yeah,
And people are like, what? Because everyone's like buzzing about it, because it's like, okay, where did the? Because everyone's trying to confirm where it came from, because nobody really knows.
yep,
And there's a lot of people like, this might be something, but we're approaching it with caution.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it looks like that area from the original footage.
mm-hmm,
Um, but it's very interesting, like this is one of the issues that the government has with this kind of thing. Even if it wasn't a conspiracy, which I think it was, they have this terrible way of fashioning the agreed upon set of events that happen, like the narrative,
mm-hmm.
and it's always terrible. It's like, well, we got like this one plane vaporized, but we got one of the hijackers' passport that fell down onto the sidewalk that's not even singed. Like,
Oh
it's
my,
like, what?
yes,
Get out of here.
yes.
I mean,
What?
at least make the official story good. Like,
Mhm,
it's just kind of crazy. And a part of it is like you're dealing with a large, bloated organism that is this machine of bureaucracy. So no wonder the official story is never great. I mean, nothing ever really. My grandfather said this thing that government is will always be classically inefficient, and he was a government man. The
mhm,
levels of checks and balances and control, like we have all of this stuff set up to protect us, but at the same time, the government naturally doesn't operate very efficiently. It's just the side effect. The one of the best government that you could possibly have is a dictatorship, but that all requires the dictator to be benevolent,
mhm.
and that's extremely rare. So there's no there the, when things happen, they happen slowly, and it's no wonder are the official narratives on things are just ridiculous.
I'll touch on one last thing about like the whole 9/11 thing, and
Hmm.
it's coming from like what you're saying is that like you had it was like what four planes, but there was supposed to be like a fifth plane that got hijacked or something like that. But there was I think in total four: the two that hit the tower, the one that went down in Pennsylvania, and then the one that hit the Pentagon.
Yeah.
And it's just like it really is interesting like how you're saying there's no debris, there's just like a skid mark, and like yeah there's a passport, and then just like oh I wonder if the reason why if like if the government did set it up, why so many planes, why so many, like why couldn't have just been one plane that hit the because that would have done it, that would have rallied I think everybody, or maybe that it was just a redundancy, like let's just get
Hmm.
four so-called planes, and like so it looks like it was a huge attack, and like like
Yeah.
like that it was the United States is under attack, rather than just saying a plane was hijacked and just like one, they needed more. I don't know, it's I don't understand I guess the reason why there were so many so-called planes that were hijacked. It
Yeah.
doesn't make
Do you
sense.
remember? Do you remember that morning?
I was in I'm aging myself, but I was in fourth grade at the time, and
Yeah.
I do. I vividly remember asking my mom at the time, I'm like, why are we watching the news? And she got
Mhm.
really mad, and I didn't understand why until like years later. But no, I do remember it. I do remember the teacher coming in and saying like, hey, just so everyone is aware, like planes have crashed into a tower. Again, I was in fourth grade. I was like, okay, a plane crashed. I didn't
Yeah.
understand. So it took, I think, a couple of years for me to actually understand. Like when I was probably, I'd say maybe getting into high school. So a handful of years later, that it was like, oh, because of those planes, that's why we're in this war that we're in right now. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah. But as far as
Yeah.
like, yeah, what about you?
No, go ahead. I figured out the perfect segue to our other topics with this, but if you had something,
Yeah.
just go ahead.
No. That was it. No, like I
Well,
kind of remember, but not really.
yeah, I remember that morning pretty clear. I was born in '89. I was like 13, 12 or 13 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what grade. It's weird. I remember ages, but I don't remember grades. Anyway,
Mm,
I was a part of this weird thing where I did homeschooling, but I was also part of a school. Like there were certain programs and classes I went to. So in the
yeah.
morning, I was just at the kitchen table, and we had this little tube TV on top of the fridge, and we saw the first one. And
Mm,
at that point, everyone thought it was a mistake. And this might go to like your theory of like why did they use so many?
yeah.
So people would be like, "Oh, this is an attack. This wasn't an accident." So,
True.
originally, I remember my folks. They were like, "Oh, this is bad. It might be a tower might," and even the newscasters were like, "This might be, a plane that got off something if something happened inside and then it crashed into the
Oh,
tower."
yeah.
And
Yep.
then my dad was walking out the door to go to work, and then the second tower hit. And that's when
Mhm.
they were like, "This is happening." And so he stayed a little bit longer, and then the Pentagon. And I
Yep.
remember his face. Because at first he thought it was like a mistake, and then when these other two hit, he looked so depressed. He was like, "Yeah, we're under attack," and then he just left for work. Yeah, he looked like really upset about it,
Yeah.
and so yeah, that goes to what you were saying. It probably they just did it at a large scale enough to where it was like there was no question in the vast general populace's mind that it was an actual attack. But this is a good segue. So
Yep.
I have a in I have all of these notes on 5-MeO DMT and like these but I also have a paranormal experience. The only one I've ever
Ooh.
had, and it
Yes.
ties into this because it happened on the Bush Gore election night. So
Oh shit. Okay.
yeah, so I was like, oh, this would be perfect. This is gonna be seamless. So
Yeah.
so okay, I'm a kid, and
Mhm.
it's 1999 or 2000. When did he get elected? It was like 2000 ish. 2000. Yeah, it was. He was
It had
in
to have been
office for
2000.
like a
Yeah.
year before
Yep.
9/11. So it was like a yeah. So my parents have this dressing room on the side of their bedroom, and they have a
Mhm.
TV in there. And then they're off of that dressing room. There's a hallway that goes up to the back of the house. And this house is pretty old. It was built in the mid 1800s in the South.
Oh.
It is this old house. And all my life, whenever friends would come over for slumber parties or whatever, they would always get freaked out. And they would always, one time there was a kid that got taken home because he was crying and everything. And and it was always like there's ghosts there or whatever. And
Yeah.
and we do have confirmation that several people have died in the house and on the property. One guy, I don't think I've ever told anybody this. One guy, it is documented. The
Mhm.
originators of the farm, the people that helped fund it, there was a cousin or someone that it actually made the newspaper. He complained constantly that there were lights and noises outside. And one night he went out with his shotgun, complaining of this incessant noise that wouldn't stop, and there were lights in the sky. And he took his shotgun out there to check things out, and he never came back. They later found him at the I think it was like the north end of the property at a gate, one of the entrances. He had shot his head off with the shotgun, and that made it in the newspaper. I have all this. Well, kind of have a local history file that I've kept. So this place is like to other people is like a really weird place. So I'm sitting in there. They're all arguing about Florida's hanging chads because they were punching holes in paper, and
Yeah.
and they're like they didn't know who the president was for like a while, and so they're like and they're then there's all these camera views of them looking through these holes on paper. It was crazy, and my parents are like, all right, well we're going to bed. This is ridiculous. So I was like, oh come on, this is historical, and watched. They went to bed and agreed to let me watch it. So I was in the dressing room. They were off on the side room, and I'm laying there watching the TV. And I don't remember if I got dozy first or whatever. But in the hallway, the door was open, and it just goes into blackness into the rest of the other part of the house. And I looked up, and there was a kind of a cloaked shadow figure that was just staring at me, not doing anything, just staring. And
Mhm.
I don't think I've ever felt that amount of terror before. It was just standing there while Bush and Gore are arguing on the TV, and it was just because that's the thing. They were like, "Oh, were you having a dream?" It was like, no, I was in the room. I could see the room. I could see the TV. The TV was on and going, and there was just this figure in the hallway staring me down, and never. I don't know. It just never did anything. So that and it was terrifying. I woke up that morning and I was like just talking about it, and my parents, I don't think they believed me, but at the time, before I went to sleep, I would like cried for them or something. I was all freaked
Mhm.
out, and
Yeah.
uh, and I grew up having like a lot of fever dreams. I was kind of sick as a kid a lot,
Yeah.
and they all just chalked it up to that, but I think it was real.
Okay, so to me, and I've said this many a times. My audience will they'll know this what I'm probably about to say. But like I will never discredit, or I will never tell someone that no, you didn't see what you saw,
Hmm.
because it comes back to like UFOs. It comes back to Bigfoot. It comes back to like paranormal encounters. Like
Yeah.
it's you have all of these documented cases where it's like, okay, there's like hunters. I Bigfoot. I will just use that for example. You have these hunters that go into the woods who have been hunting for like 20, 30 years, even plus, right? They know every step, they know every tree in there. And then they say they saw something
Hmm.
that is not like they're like it was not an animal. It was like it was a Bigfoot or something like that, you know? So it's just like, how are you going to discredit someone like that? Like and granted, like I know some people say like what you said, AI, you know, like there's always like someone who could be messing around with like just, throwing a UFO into it and being like, oh yeah, there's a UFO. But it's just like when you can tell when someone is like telling the truth and not telling the truth. And granted, okay, kids, they do see, like, sometimes their imagination plays on them and everything like that.
Hmm.
But to like you right now, for how old you are, and you're still telling the story that you did see something, I believe you 100%. There would be no reason for you to like tell that story. You know what I mean? So it's just like,
Yeah, like it's like what it's something like I would love to see a paranormal thing again, but that's the
oh
only
yeah.
thing I've got, and
Mhm.
everyone is like, "Well, careful what you wish for," but it's like, well, that would be kind of comforting to know that there's like more to this and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it was weird enough to where it just stuck with me, and that's like my only paranormal thing that I've got, and I wish I could see another one.
So here in Germany, the house that I'm in, it's I'm sure it was probably built maybe not as old as like definitely not in the 1800s, but probably like 40s or 50s. I would probably say that this building probably went up. But anyways, it's and I haven't seen anything paranormal. However, I will say this: I have two cats, and some of them sometimes will be sleeping, and I don't know if it's just like cars driving by or like the fact that I have two cats that like I think I see another cat, but there's times where it's like I see my two cats sleeping, I'll go upstairs, and I think I saw one of them, like just like down the like just kind of like jump across the door or something like that, and it's just
Yeah.
like I don't know if that was or wasn't, because like again, I do believe in this, and I think what you said too there is like you want to see something again to give it validity and like
Yeah.
say like it is true, and I think that's like what like people that like look for Bigfoot or look for UFOs or like ghost hunting. Like they saw something and they want to like know what it is or what the truth is behind it. And it's, I don't know, to dedicate, I find it really interesting when people dedicate like their whole life to just like finding it. But I can understand it
I
because it's
know.
almost like an obsession
Yeah.
almost, where it's like, I want answers, I want to know what it is. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, you saying that, yeah, it's very true, very true.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I've people I've known, like there's always like kind of a cat. They always go like, "Well, my cat." So, which reminds me of that awesome scene in Constantine when Keanu Reeves is like, "Cats are half in and out, half out anyway," and he's like, they're like the connection to the other side he has to use to go to hell. And yeah, I think there cats definitely seem like they're on like a different frequency. Though it would be
Yeah.
hilarious if like back to like the whole DMT thing, if they're
Mhm.
if that's just like they're seeing that all the time.
That's what that would make so much sense why my cats are always freaked out or always like on
Yeah,
edge.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's I I know we actually talked about a lot of different stuff. We didn't actually stay on like the topics that we were supposed to
We
cover.
didn't at all.
We went over like I think a bunch of different conspiracies, which is, that's totally fine with me. Um, my editor, he can edit this piece out. If you want to keep talking, we definitely can.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
good. I can
okay,
keep going. It's like,
okay.
it always makes me sad whenever there's like a really good podcast and they're like, we gotta wrap it up. I'm like, no, come on, like whenever Alex Jones goes on Rogue, and I'm like, get a few more drinks in him, fire up a doobie, let's go.
Oh, that's I maybe I don't know if we should get into Alex Jones, but
Well, that's
that,
the thing about Alex Jones is he is an intentionally inflammatory uh personality. Like that's
mhm,
his brand. His brand
yes,
is like pounding the desk with papers flying everywhere and uh
yeah.
and saying I've got hot blood running through my heart real fast. You know? I mean, that's him. And I
Yeah.
have such I put him in the special place because I remember when he got arrested for going up before George Bush, back when he was governor of Texas,
Mhm.
and questioning him in front of a crowd about his dad's involvement with the CFR and like why is this and why is that, and like, and then they arrested him and they had no real legal grounds. He wasn't doing anything illegal,
Yeah.
but they ushered him out and like they made a file on him and stuff. But like he's always, and the other thing that's interesting is his penetration of the Bohemian Grove, that old video,
I was
like the
just gonna bring that
Moloch.
up. Yes.
Yeah, it's like okay, even if man, it's just even if it was all set up and everything, it's still a bunch of old guys that run our country in robes, doing a play with an ancient Moloch owl god with
Yeah.
fire. It's like those people there. It was a retreat. And we
Yeah.
don't
Oh,
talk about all
yeah.
the people that get caught and like have to explain themselves. They're like, it's a retreat amongst gentlemen, and we don't talk about policy there. Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you don't. This is actually a great kind of connection to what actually I was actually gonna bring up was like
Yeah.
the Walt Disney. So
Oh.
he was a Freemason. Like, so this is what I'll bring up. What I was gonna cover was Club 33, and then one other conspiracy surrounding Disney, which I'll be surprised if you've heard about this one. I actually took
Okay.
some digging. Just real quick, I'll hit on Club 33 in case nobody really knows what it is. Walt Disney was a Freemason, and I think one of the ranks within it is the 33rd something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
33rd,
Yeah,
33-degree Mason, yeah.
yes, that's what it is. Thank you. And that's where some people believe Club 33 got its origins, like at Disney. And it's interesting because you think if he really wanted to start something like this, he would have done it 4 or 5 months before he died. But that's
Interesting. So
Yes,
this was all right. Just to confirm what you're saying,
mhm.
you're saying there was a club associated that Disney started, that hit Walt started.
So yes, so it wasn't. I think it took. Well, I mean, I don't know when he died, but Disney was already made and everything like that. But he wanted to make like a private club for like super rich, like elite people could join, and that's where the idea Club 33 came from. And people were
Okay.
trying to connect, like, why was it Club 33? And then people started digging into Walt Disney's life. Oh, he was a Freemason. Well, how far up was he? Well, he was a 33rd degree or whatever. So it's just like, oh, okay, well, maybe this is where all of that came from. So it's supposed to be like a secret. No one knows about it, yada, yada. But obviously people do, and Disney doesn't like hide it very well, or they don't they don't like they're not like, oh no, there is no Club 33. Like they acknowledge that yes, there is one, like there's a private club. Um, and what they say that goes on and everything like that is it's from all the reading that I had done on it was that it's essentially just a really expensive dinner place where it's like yes, you have like you can go in like certain like I don't know like resort areas and there's like private lounges and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But in long story short, what it is, it's a it's just a private club for like high end dinner. That's what they make it seem like, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But to get into the club it makes you think that there might be more behind it than what it actually is because you have to, there's a wait list. Like it's not just you can join or who you know or whatever, but it's anywhere from the numbers that I had read, they're all over the place. But the highest I think is 30,000 to $9,000 to join.
Wait, a plate? Oh, the membership.
Yes, just to
Oh man.
join. So you have to like pay this with your entry fee, like with all that stuff, just to even get looked at, right? And then reading more into it, it's the actual dinner, like that doesn't cover your meals or anything. That's just to join.
Oh man.
So then like the actual dinners are like a couple $100 too. And then to keep your membership is like an extra $5,000 or like $10,000 a year. And then
So
there's
it's
like
kind of like a Scientology light.
yeah, yeah, I guess yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy. Yes.
I love watching rich people waste their money.
Yeah, well, it makes you think like what Disney within itself between having now Star Wars, what was the other thing that oh no, they didn't get Lord of the Rings. Marvel, I think
No,
they have.
they got Aliens and they got the Simpsons, which is the worst, the worst. It's the
Yes,
worst
yeah.
thing.
So like Disney has all of these things. So it's like honestly, do they have to have that price tag for them to join? No, they don't. So it makes you kind of think like what really is going on in there and everything like that. Um, I couldn't find anything as far as conspiracies going on with what's in Club 33. It really does seem something very innocent, like it's just a high-end dinner place.
Hmm.
But Walt Disney itself, that's where like the conspiracy lies with him being a Freemason. And I'm sure you've seen this on plenty of like subreddits and everything like that with all like the hidden logos, like Walt
Oh
Disney,
yeah,
how he even signed his name was like 666. So they're
yeah.
like it's a
It's really
satanic
weird.
cult.
It's like
And
it's like yeah, but I it's that's there. I can see it. It's weird. It's
mhm,
very
yeah,
strange.
yeah.
What was the other thing? What was it? On one of the DVDs, there was the dildo that was in
Little
Ariel's
Mermaid.
castle. Huh?
Little Mermaid. It's Little Mermaid. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's just that it's like then they always throw some animator under the bus. But it's like I don't know. There's a pattern here, and
Yes,
you're in charge of entertaining our kids, and I find it's kind of strange.
yes.
There's some patterns.
Well, you bring up the dildo thing, like they didn't like the so like
Yeah.
what they're saying is that it's it's like a sex-driven satanic cult thing, Illuminati, Freemason thing. Because
Yeah, yeah.
I'm looking at the what is it's from Daily. Where is it? Oh, give me 2 seconds. Daily Nose, I think it is. Or no, let me see here. dailykos.com. That's where I'm
Okay.
getting this from. But anyways, there is a bunch of pictures of like Walt Disney animating things, and one of them is like I wish I knew what movie this is, but like it has a bunch of like girls like throwing up like this sign, like the devil
Mm-hmm.
horns, and
Mm-hmm.
then
Do they do
there's an
this?
there's nothing
Or
in
like this? They do the
yeah.
triangle and then the eye.
Well, there's a lot of triangle references. The Zootopia,
Mm-hmm.
apparently, like the OTO, so zoo and then topia. So it's the what is it? It's like some sort of logo, or like it references the owl, like the two O's and the
Mm-hmm.
T. It looks like an owl face. What other is there's it looks like Cinderella, like the witch is she's holding up the devil horns. A Winnie the Pooh movie, like the how the trees are, it looks like a
Yeah.
devil type thing. It's just
Oh
like
man. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy.
It reminds me of the Paramount logo, and if you go down the rabbit hole enough, you'll eventually find stuff like this. There was this one guy talking about how Lucifer was the fallen star, and he took a third of heaven with him to
Yeah,
hell,
yeah.
and then there or to what is the name of it? It is called uh, the name where it was pandemonium. Is it with the
Mm.
pandemonia is the like the word of the kingdom that was built in hell of the fallen angels and the North Star that fell or whatever. And I watched this thing where this guy was showing how the star that falls when the animation of the Paramount logo comes and then it circles around a mountain for illumination, and
Oh,
it's like, oh
yeah.
man, this is all weird. If you watch enough of those TikToks, I was watching a TikTok one night and it got me pulling out my old vinyls of Zeppelin 3, and because it said yeah, oh, what is the thing that Aleister Crowley said? Do without wilt. And I
Mhm.
was like, and he showed on the vinyl that one of the original pressings had it etched on the B side, and I was like, what? And I have an original of the Zeppelin 3, but apparently it wasn't. I was like pulling out all my vinyls, like,
that it really is like, when like when we talked about this earlier, like when you start digging and then you start like seeing like okay, and I think you can kind of see it like I think nowadays it's perfect. You can really see it now where like there's a strong um like movement for like uh woman empowerment and everything like that. So they're taking on like a lot of lead roles. There's nothing wrong with that. Like yeah, like I love the movie Aliens. Love it. Sigourney Weaver all the way. Love that
yeah,
movie.
yeah,
Um but it's like you see how the movie industry they want to push a message, so they are, and you can see it. So it's just
yeah,
like okay, like if they're doing this now and you go back to older movies, it's like okay, well what are they trying to like what message are they trying to push right now? Or like there's even like theories that or conspiracies that like that is the whole reason why the movie industry got so big is like they're trying to push their like agenda or their
hmm,
what they want to happen, so they make these movies and these well you can even I guess see it like in the 80s where it's like Russia, the USSR is bad, and there's all these movies where all right, well let's
oh
take
yeah.
down. So it's just like okay, you see it there now then again
Yeah,
too.
you
So
have like Daffy Duck beating up Hitler.
yeah, like
Like,
that
and that
too.
yeah, and
Yeah.
if you look way back, like some of those animations were super racist.
Oh
There's
yeah.
this one where there one I forget, it was like a cat, I forget, but it was a Walt Disney, and the way they portrayed black people was horrendous. So you look
Yes.
back at that, and in history, in hindsight, like what we were talking about earlier,
Mhm.
we can see that and spot it very clearly.
Yep.
It will be interesting, like just how history reads the stuff, and it's very well known that they all research back in like around the 80s, I believe it was, is when they all kind of started figuring out a really good way of advertising, subliminal, these kind of things that made advertisements sell and things to sell, and they absolutely adopted that into the movie industry. But the thing is like with all of that, it's you kind of look at one of my favorites is like some modern ones like Taylor Swift, and like that she was intentionally humiliated by Kanye West at the whatever award show, because in certain secret societies there are ritualized humiliation in order for you to rise in the ranks. And that's one
Oh,
of those theories where she had to subject herself to public humiliation in order to rise. And look at her now; she's doing quite well. And the other one I like is that she is the cloned. She is the she is Anton LaVey's daughter's clone, and they not only look very similar, they both have similar styles and stuff like that. And she after she was gonna rise in the ranks of the Church of Satan in some capacity, and there are
yeah.
people that totally believe that she is the clone of Anton LaVey's daughter.
No, I
Yeah.
have not heard that.
Yeah, and
This,
and you know how those side by side, when a conspiracy theorist makes a video and they're like, look at Anton LaVey's dot, and
yeah.
look at Aleister Crowley and Barbara Bush, huh?
Uh,
Huh? They're related. The most convincing one is who's the prime minister guy in Canada? His
Justin
eyebrows fall.
Trudeau.
Yeah, that
Justin
he's
Trudeau.
the yeah
Yeah.
that he's related to Castro. And if you look at them side by side, it's like they look identical.
Yes.
And the woman that was supposedly had the affair with Castro was in Cuba at the time. Like
Yes.
there's people that like tracked all this down, and it's like, well, that might be real.
That's that is something that I like. I will like. I want to get to that point where like I figure something like that out. Like I with my
Yeah,
research that I do, I
this
want to
is
be like,
mine.
because it's like almost like what you were saying was like, okay, Justin Trudeau's mom was down in Cuba at the time based on this plane ticket that she took down there for this conference. It's like how did you know all that? Like where did you dig? It's just like it must take like I would
Oh,
almost maybe chop it
talk
up
about
to
the rabbit hole. These guys, they
yeah
live in the rabbit hole.
yeah they're in the tunnels. They
Yeah,
don't get
they
out.
are.
So, but
Ugh.
it is this kind of brings me up to. I'll bring this up and then I'll get back on the one last Disney thing that I have. But have you
Yeah,
seen the military's new psyops commercial?
I have not. I
Well,
don't think so.
it's
Wait, it's a commercial that's aired.
yes, yes.
What brand is it? Just what branch?
I believe Army.
Okay, no.
It's the Army's new psyop recruiting video. If you haven't heard, if you're listening to this, go watch it. I suggest you watch it too. It is insane.
I'm gonna
Um,
write it down.
yeah, I won't spoil it or anything like that, but kind of like what we were talking about, like how who's really pulling the strings, who's like what is this all about? That commercial makes you think like the government is behind everything because like the whole idea behind like psyops is like psychological warfare, and they depict that in that commercial like perfectly. So one last thing on the whole psyops thing. There was a division, I believe, within I think it was during World War II, where it was called the Ghost Battalion, and I
Okay.
think that's what it was called. Don't quote me on that. I'll try to maybe I'll figure it out, and I'll
Yeah.
actually in the next episode I'll name drop what it was actually called. Anyways, it was a battalion or a something on the lines of that where it was all about faking or trying to what was it? It was convincing like the enemy that they had more than what they actually had. So for instance, they had blow up tanks, like balloon tanks.
Oh
So it looked
yeah.
exactly like a tank, but like you could just like pick it up. And they had like hundreds of them. and it was a way to like scare the enemy into thinking like they had all like we had all of these tanks and all this stuff, and it was just like they played on tricking the enemy and everything like that, and making them think that they were places that they really weren't, and just like all of it. So it's just like, again, we brought that up, like the government is going to do what it wants to do, and like it's going to play with their minds and everything like that. And again, the whole the new psychological warfare psyops video that I think the army has, it's insane. And it makes you believe. It makes you turn into. I think they're trying to turn people into conspiracy theorists, and that video does it
Maybe.
perfectly.
The problem is that they do leak disinformation intentionally and muddy the waters to where you can't find the truth.
Yep.
Yeah, I do remember that they were trying to get the Germans to like waste artillery by bombing like these fake tanks and stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah, and that
So
might
you're
have
saying
been.
there's a modern? Sorry.
Oh, and that might have been. We're probably thinking of the same thing. Is like, yeah, it's probably that.
Well, I'm really interested into this psyop commercial. Man, that's the one thing that is a tricky topic. It's like you got to speak in code because the modern day things, like we can call them false flags and stuff. It's very interesting, but I don't want to get sued for $1 trillion.
By the military.
Yeah. I mean, that's the interesting thing about Jones's situation. He is being I was listening to a podcast where they were like, he is now he went as a historical figure, you know, you look back and he is this guy that rants on a show. That was him. And now I think the last figure that I saw was like $960 million he's being sued for. So he's been this podcast I was listening to, he's turned into like a footnote to like legal precedents that people will defer to as a historical like legal argument in cases. He's turned into a historical figure.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I cannot believe the amount of money like that he got sued for. Like it's
Well, he'll never pay that.
no.
There's no. I don't even think it's like a legal thing, and I'm not going to get into like the people suing him and everything, but it is kind of weird because it's clearly a statement. It reads to me like as someone that likes to talk online is like, be careful, like, you know, which could be another form of control. But it's strange because it has gotten to such a point that it's a laughable number what he's being sued for, and I don't know. It screams like a message to future people. It's like, yeah, we have free speech, but you know, watch it.
Like we're a perfect example of it. We did it earlier with a certain shot. It was like it's not right. Like, I understand the purpose of like there are some people, you know, like maybe trying to spread lies, and that's not good. You know, like if people want informed decisions, or like if they want, you know, it's not good to lie to people like that in a nutshell. But it's like, you know what, the people need to do their own research. People need to like, okay, is this guy who's ranting all the time, is what he's saying really true? I don't know. Or is this medical place or whatever who has X, Y, and Z certificates, or, you know, like has been proven right 99.9% of the time, are what they saying is correct? Well, you know, like make a decision who you're going to believe, and it really should be up to the person who's ever listening. It really should. But that's neither here nor there. I completely get. I get what you're saying and everything, and it is, I think, a statement where it's, you know, watch what you say.
Well, it's very interesting. Again, and this is another thing. When we speak as people online, whether or not you have a YouTube or whatever, it's really interesting the way
I froze.
Oh no! All I was saying was it's really interesting. To divert just a second, that whenever you speak and upload a video, YouTube's AI is already transcribing the words spoken. So they will put that little message down there to a Wikipedia article or
Mhm.
whatever that and their thing is to not spread disinformation and all that. Like the government can do it, but when you have a tiny podcast, here's the context so you can read. And I see it all the time. If you look up anything about this is something mild like the moon landing, and
Mhm.
someone is like, see here, it's fake, this video, and then there will be a thing that they don't put up. That YouTube puts up, linking you to the Wikipedia of the official narrative of the moon landing. My problem goes back to your point is that you gotta it. We're in a society that is constantly infantiling us. Like,
Mhm.
mainstream news is a really good example where they don't really want you to. They want you to take what they say on face value.
Yep.
Um, but it's very strange. And when you, uh, I don't know if you I don't know if you played Metal Gear Solid growing up, but it reminds me of the AI systems and the different things that got out of control and of it, like the Patriot system. And
Mhm.
these AIs started curating news and information and all of this stuff, and then Metal Gear Solid 2 bleeds into 4, and that it's really weird in this age of seeing AI systems do that, like put up a Wikipedia article for your context. And
Yeah.
at what point is there some quiet little system that gains sentience that kind of runs away from its creators a little bit, and we got a real mess, and it's creating. I do a lot of AI art, and it's
Mhm.
extremely impressive what it can do now. But I'm thinking like, what is it? What can it do in 5 years, 10 years? Like we're already seeing AI videos that are really good that are being made by Google's AI, and so
Yeah.
like it just gets to the point like, man, anything can be faked.
Yeah.
Anything can be faked. But anyway, that's a completely different tangent. You had another point about Disney. Sorry.
No, no, no. You were good. That's totally fine. The only other thing that I was gonna probably bring up about Disney is there is a it's a disappearance, and what happened was a forgot her name, but it was Rachel something. She was on a Disney cruise, and she was one of the workers, and she was in the lounge where the workers are and everything, and the workers said that she left the room for probably like 20-30 minutes, and then someone noticed that she was kind of gone for maybe too long, and they go and look for her, and no one can find her, and that was the last anyone had ever seen of her. It was like she was in a lounge, like they took off from port, whatever. They didn't say how many days they were out there, but she was in the lounge. 20 or 30 minutes had passed. They go looking for her. No one can find her, right? And they're chopping it up to like two solid things, and I call bullshit on both of them. And one is that she was walking around the deck and she just fell off, which I'm like, no, there's no
Okay.
way. There's no way. A Disney cruise, like you can trip and you can fall off. No. And then the second one was that they were saying that, oh, she must have like killed herself because she was in a bad relationship and she just committed suicide. And
How
those are
old
like
was she?
um it didn't say in the article that I had read. But if I had to guess, I mean obviously anywhere from probably like 20 to 40. I wish I could remember her name, but
I'm gonna look that up.
it's
That
in
is
the
crazy.
yeah, it's in the UK. If you look in like UK top disappearances, hers is one of them. If you yeah, UK Disney disappearances, Rachel something. I'm sure you'll come across it, but this is why I think this is like a Disney conspiracy, and is because the amount of time that they spent trying to look for her and like to try to like come up with a reasonable like conclusion was not very long. It was like anywhere from like a couple of weeks to like a month or two, and then they're like, she probably just fell off, and that's it. And it's just like, wait. Like you're telling me this Disney cruise doesn't have any cameras, doesn't like have like anything saying like where she was, like when like she jumped off or like she like fell off or anything like that. They're like, no, there's no camera footage. And I looked that up. I was like, all right, do Disney cruise lines have cameras? And like what it said was depending on the boat, yes or no. I was like, but I think as Disney, as like how big it is, it would have a lot of cameras because if like for legal reasons, like, oh hey, I tripped, I hurt my elbow, now I'm
Yeah.
suing you, or like I feel like every Disney cruise has cameras. That's just me. I could be wrong, but research that I did, some do, some don't, which I call bullshit. So honestly, what I think happened was either A, she got hurt, like whether it be like, like she was messing around with an electrical box or she was like doing something and like the ship or someone on the boat hurt her. And a way to cover it up, like, was toss her overboard. So, because there was no body that was found. So
Oh,
I honestly think that like they threw her overboard or they did something with the body. I don't think it was necessarily maybe like Disney within itself, but I feel like the crew members, someone called somebody and was like, "Hey, what do we do with her?" And someone
uh,
higher up was like, "Just get rid of her." It's a really interesting, yeah, it's a really interesting story when you read it and everything. But like that is like you never heard about that. Like, have
no,
you heard about that? Yeah, and
no.
it's like I feel like Disney could like suppress that story very easily. Like like like, it makes you think too. Like how many other deaths or injuries occur at these places, and like you just don't hear about it. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that was the only two that I really had covered. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Like, what do you think
I
might have?
like your I like your theory. I mean, what would that mean to Disney? Let if she got hurt and it was Disney's fault, like an exposed electrical box, something that is clearly their fault. They have footage
Mhm.
of it or whatever. That is a lot of bad press that hurts ticket sales. That is a mess that I could see a corporation wanting to go away.
Yeah,
I think to a degree that yeah, that kind of stuff probably happens more than we think. Yeah. I
Eh,
what one of the that kind of thing reminds me of before John McAfee killed himself.
mhm.
He was saying how bodies were disposed. He was going off on tangents, and he was a classic. He was a good. He was a snake oil salesman.
Mhm.
Uh, he liked one of my tweets, just in case anybody ever knew. I almost I replied to it. He never replied back, but I almost had an interaction with him.
Nice.
He was talking about like how professional how in the professional industry how bodies were disposed of. He was saying like around 4 a.m. A dump truck will roll up and you will be wheeled out in a garbage receptacle and then put in a trash compactor and then taken off site. And it was just
Oh
so like
my
that is a
gosh.
way because it's like how Jimmy Hoffa disappeared. The one of the most solid theories is that he was burnt in an incinerator that the mob owned. And it's most likely that he probably isn't under a slab in Michigan somewhere. He probably they
Yeah.
just there's just he doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And I would think that yeah, I don't know. There every now and then these powerful people like I love it when certain political figures, millionaire or billionaire friends wind up like hanging in their penthouse. And it's like, no, I don't know. It's like, okay. uh,
That and yeah, it's and I don't know how popular. I think what year he was like a 2012, I think anywhere from 2012 to like 2018. I think that's when this happened. But I do remember like cruises used to be like I remember seeing commercials nonstop
yeah,
as a kid for cruises and like
yeah,
especially Disney cruises. And I don't see so much of that now. And I think that might be like almost like what you're saying, like hurt ticket prices. Like they're already sucking the way it
yeah,
is. This isn't going to help anything. Just get rid of her, like
yeah.
who knows? So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that combined with like every now and then you see one tipped over because
oh
they're
yeah.
designed very poorly. I've heard that they're designed to be the center of weight, the height of them are built so that you don't get motion sick. It bobs a certain way but the trade-off is that it's extremely capsizable. And so they go incredibly slow and they go in known waters that are charted and close to shorelines
Yeah.
Uh, and so it makes sense that that all of these things that go, yeah, I mean that was a big business once upon a time.
Yeah, it really was. So yeah, those were the two. And if you were listening to this as an audience member, if you want to do any more research, just look that up. Definitely the psyops one. That's a great commercial. You're gonna like that one.
I'm doing that the second I get off.
But yeah, that's all I had. I know we didn't get actually into yours. We talked about your paranormal experience. I don't know if do you want to do a part two? Like we can definitely if we can stay on, we can go for the 2 hour mark if you want.
It's up to
Um,
you. What are we at now? I don't even know.
we are at an hour and a half,
Okay,
roughly.
I'm good to go. This is my problem with the original thing. I can't find it, and so I was kind of panicked. Getting, I'm like, oh no, I don't have any material. But
Yeah.
the the crux of this started with, or for me, my exposure to this particular theory
Yep.
is that Alex Jones mentioned it. Now, I know,
Oh,
but when he mentioned it, if you did a little research, like it comes from somewhere. The link between the government using DMT derivatives for contact with entities. Um, People in that know like about DMT and different things know Terrence McKenna, and and he there was a place in Florida where he helped cultivate or bring back from South America the cappy vine, which is the one of the active ingredients in ayahuasca brew. And ayahuasca is just a name for the brew. The natives in South America a long time ago figured out that if you add Psychotria viridis, a completely different plant, to the cappy vine in a brew, there's an enzyme inhibitor in Psychotria viridis that allows your stomach to uptake 5-MeO DMT, and then it gets converted, and then you trip balls. But
mhm.
and so now whenever people are talking about DMT, it's crystalline form. There's a bunch of different places you can get it from, or extract it from, with just ingredients from blows, just solvents, and then bake all that off and get crystal. It's free form. And but anyway, there's an oral version of it that is ayahuasca, and it has a slower reaction time. It is one of the things that's very interesting about it is I believe they originally coined the term harmine, or uh, what is the other one? It's harmine, and basically this active ingredient we have like a scientific name for, but originally it was harmine, or telepathane,
Mhm.
and so which are very interesting words because harmine implies that people are having there's a harmony between their experiences, or
Yeah.
telepathane. There's like telepathic side effects, and so they take these things. And what's really interesting is that even current, I mean, there's always been stories about shared hallucinations, but the current like kind of ayahuasca trips that wealthier people have gotten into, it's really funny because I believe it to be kind of a dirty business. I was actually offered. I was in Chicago one time at a plant store, and this lady was. I expressed interest in a particular cacti because it has an interesting molecule in it,
Yep.
and so we got talking about this, and she was an older lady, and she was like, "Oh, I've been invited to this ayahuasca ceremony trip thing," and I was like, "Oh, interesting." And she was like, "Would you like to go? I believe that the shaman has one spot open." And I was like, "Yeah, what's the info?" And it turned out to be like $5,000 per person, and
Holy
it's
shit.
like, hey, if you want some ayahuasca, I can get you some ayahuasca. I'm not going to charge you $5,000 for it. And she was like, oh, but it's his, the guy, he's gonna be our spiritual guide. And it's like, all right. My problem is that I think that there's a lot of these kind of yoga guys that prey on certain people that don't understand certain things, and so rather than call them like a trip babysitter, they're like, oh, we're a spirit guide and stuff. And I think that they're kind of swindled out of stuff, but those compounds are interesting. Terrence McKenna like brought back there was a species called McKenna red, and anyway, so the link that I couldn't confirm right before this was the kind of the semi-confirmed government connection. Now we know through Project Moonlight and MK Ultra and different stuff like that they were absolutely dabbling with compounds and what they did. Um, but yeah, harming and DMT, all that kind of stuff is very interesting because like everybody talks about the Clockwork Elves, everybody talks about the Shadow People or the Jesters or the this or the that, and it's in like his history and texts on the people that used to do this kind of stuff. And it goes back to what we were saying earlier: is this stuff like a vibrational dimensional gateway that like tunes our brain radio into this particular reality where these entities are always around us and observing us, and then we just, whenever we take something, it's very interesting because the South American lore and stuff, it becomes very like religious and faith-based around these compounds. And but yeah, that was basically it. I just wish I had the info on the link between the government because I really want to know if the government was stopping pilots' hearts because they were getting desensitized to like intravenous ayahuasca to bring back schematics from Clockwork Elves in order to make a breakaway civilization off our tax dollars and go to different planets.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. We talked about it. Like I 100% believe like the government would be up to something like that. Like yeah, 100%. Something that I don't know if you know who this is. Teal Swan. Have you heard of her?
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh, she is. Here's another thing to look up.
I'm gonna write it down.
There's a I don't know if you have Hulu. You don't even have to watch the whole series. You can just probably type in Teal Swan Hulu trailer.
TL, like how do you spell the first?
Teal. I think it's like
Tiel or something.
Yeah, and then Swan.
Okay.
If you type in like that and then Hulu trailer, it'll come up.
Okay.
I don't know the exact name, spelling of her name, but she's almost exactly like what you were saying, where it's like she charges people, like she's a spiritual leader, right? Mm-hmm. And she charges people up the wazoo for money, like to come to like her like resort, and she like will heal people. But like her big thing is like when people are like go through like a traumatic experience, rather than suppressing it, they need to re-experience it over and over and over. And it's like it's traumatic, and it's just like holy shit. And then if you watch the series, do you have Hulu?
I do.
Okay, I'm not gonna say anymore. I'm sorry for the audience. Like I'm building it up and everything like that. It's a great series. I suggest you watch it because like as you keep watching it, you find out, or at least what I got from it is like she's kind of a turd. Like she's just like what she's doing to people and what she's kind of making them believe is it's not right. I don't know, but like almost what you're saying, like with the whole spiritual leader thing, like you don't need $5,000 to like do X, Y, and Z. It's just like I feel like that's what she's doing. That's the only reason why I bring her up. But yeah, it's she's a piece of work.
Well, yeah, so. I know, and I feel so bad for some people because I think there are some people that get to a certain age in life that have been probably through trauma or different things, they haven't been able to develop past it, like age-wise, and so they're looking for something. And then you have these dirtbags that prey off of that and charge a ton of money, and that's how you get like what's his face. The joke, the bad Joker. What's the guy's name? He was in, wins a bunch of awards. He's a good actor. Mars, Jared Leto. That's how you get an island and wear all white, and then you charge like an obscene amount of money to all women, Like, like, man, who wouldn't want to be him? And they all are like, we're in a cult. Yeah. It's like, man, it's like he on his like drug fuck island with a whole
Yeah.
bunch of like Uber fans. That's crazy. But you get that kind of there's these kind of people that are deeply looking for some kind of meaning, or they're worried they wasted their life, and they're like really susceptible to that kind of thing. And it's like how what is that what is that cult Exion, or what is it that it was the chick from Smallville got into it, and they were branding women. The
Oh.
Nexium, the
Next.
Nexium
Yep.
cult.
Yep.
And yeah, you get that kind of thing. And that the thing is, every now and then you see on the news something that's been exposed, but how much, and then it goes back to your thing about the Disney 33 Club.
Mm-hmm.
um like, who knows what they're doing, but what's happening we have absolutely no idea about. Like, the people that know how to keep their mouth shut, like, what are there's this kind of stuff. Like, there's a reason why the QAnon people believe that there's children being tunneled all throughout, like, huge networks of tunnels. It's because
Yeah.
every now and then we get exposure to like this incredibly dark side, and then there's some people that are just like, well, we're all ruled by these crazy people, and they just run with it. And I don't know if they're wrong or not, but I can see where they're coming from. Uh,
It
they're
it
yeah,
it's one of these things where I think you kind of hit on it too. It's like you get to a certain point in your life. It's almost where it's like, am I gonna waste all of my time trying to like expose this stuff and like really worry about it, or am I just gonna live my life as best I can and just be as happy as I can? I think like everyone has to choose. It's like, do you want to just live your life, just like whatever happens, like in the grand scheme. Okay, so like when there's presidential elections and like your side doesn't win, and it's like, all right, my life is ruined now, and then
yeah,
4 years pass and it's like, wait, did my life really change all that much?
exactly,
And it's just
exactly.
like, do you really want to worry about something all that much? But then you look at like sometimes like what they're like people are getting all in a like a flustered about, and it's like almost like, okay, the child trafficking thing, that is
Yeah,
not right. And I think if like, oh my, people can go back to your ghost thing, like if something happens to you, you want to find out why, and you want to get to the bottom of it, and then it's just
yeah,
like you want to like expose stuff. So I don't know, it I'm not saying everyone should just be like, whatever, it is what it is, we're ruled by these elites, and it's just, I guess that's how it is. It's not right if that is what is going on. But it's like at a certain point, can you really change all that much about like what is going on? Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. You gotta weigh your options and everything. So I don't know.
yeah.
It's crazy.
The um Yeah, it gets like what you're talking about with like election cycles and stuff. Like, yeah, it's true. People get very upset on either side, whatever happens, where
Yeah.
some political topic comes on, and like the Supreme Court did this or that, and if you're old enough and you rewind to like, I'm living exactly the way I've always lived. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't have a ton of money, but I'm okay,
Yep.
and but like nothing like every time it's like the end of the world, and it's like, no,
Mm.
well, maybe it's not. I think
Yeah.
maybe that, and start a podcast so you can rant about it. So like I every every relationship I've been in with various girlfriends, that I have a problem. That's the going back to your thing, like, do I try to uncover this, or do I just sit back and try to enjoy life? And I can attest that you probably shouldn't go on and on and on about it, because your loved ones will get exhausted,
Oh
and
yeah. Yeah.
and then you realize, oh, I need to make a podcast, and so I don't subject them to this all the time.
Yeah, it's yeah, I and like it's almost one of these things where it's like you can you can start a podcast and that's how you can, blow off some energy and get this all out. But it's, yeah, it's, I don't know. It's do your research. I think in a nutshell, I think what we're trying to get at with all of this, do your research, form your
Yeah,
own
do your
opinions.
research. Do your research, stockpile some stuff in case shit hits the
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
Start a family, calm down, and just like enjoy life, but also just have fun on a podcast.
um, I think I think that's all I got. I don't know if you have any more or anything else.
Uh, I got the other thing was you were talking about the 33-degree club, and it reminded me the only exposure I have to that concept. I never heard of the Disney club,
Mhm.
but I have a friend of mine, and I'm gonna keep him anonymous. But
Yep.
he said he told me that his dad was a 33-degree Mason, and the my friend had never really dabbled in that world or was ever interested in it. And when his father passed, there were a bunch of men that approached him and said that, hey, they were part of some lodge. They're all Masons, and
Mhm.
they were saying your father was a 33-degree Mason, which makes you and I didn't know this, but apparently you have to be born. There's so many levels you get to, but a 33-degree Mason is like you're born into it. It's like by blood, and
Mhm.
they wanted him to like engage and be a part of it, and he was like, no, I don't want any part of you guys,
Really?
and he turned it down, but he always was creeped out by that, and by creeped out by like just the system of it. It just never appealed to him, and he didn't want to have anything to do with it. And he doesn't believe in, being born into power of any kind. And he's a really chill guy.
Mhm.
Then the only other exposure I have to Freemasonry is like my grandfather on my dad's side was briefly in it, kind of like in the South around here. Back in the day, it was like always like, oh, what's your lodge? It was like a thing. It was like a
No.
status thing. It was like going to church. You had a role in some lodge, but he was in it briefly and really didn't like it. He didn't like how they did things and what the things you have to do. And I've read one of those books before. Depending on what level you are, or if you're an initiate, you get a handbook. And I got like it was called the Tennessee something handbook, and it was for initiates apparently. And I still have a copy. Anybody that wants it, I can just throw up the PDF because I scanned the whole thing.
Oh,
But
nice.
it was a they have all these different rituals and different things and different kind of philosophical riddles, but they have blank spaces
Mhm.
in it. So and you don't know what the blanks say until you rise to the next degree, and then some of the info is filled in. And
Okay.
but to me, it just kind of screams a cult because that's the way everything works. That's the way Scientology works. It's like, well, if you pay this and get to this level, well, you'll know a little bit more about
Yep.
Xenu and his alien volcano.
Yeah.
It's always like they dangle a carrot in front of you, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just glad I'm not susceptible to that kind of thing.
So it's funny that you bring that up because one of our co-hosts, we didn't know this till probably like 2 or 3 episodes ago. He's actually a Freemason as well.
Really,
Like yes,
like
and
current.
yes, yeah, like that's like he's in it and
Oh,
everything, and
interesting.
yeah, and he if I remember correctly, he didn't join. I forgot the reason why he said it wasn't like for any like he wants to be like a part of like a cult or like conspiracy like anything like that. He wanted like to be a part of something,
Yeah.
and like he said like what they actually like do is like the fundraisers and like all that stuff. He's like he loves that. He joined because of that. He said there are some like mysterious type things that do go on, but nothing like I guess as far as like the one that he's a part of, like nothing weird. He's like, shit, these guys can't even put together like a fundraiser. Like I doubt they're doing anything like super secret or like anything ritualized. And it's like that's funny because it's like when you hear the word Freemason, you think like, okay, yeah, guys in robes doing all this weird stuff, and it's like well, maybe some of them are, but there's like a group of them that aren't. So it was really interesting to hear from his
That
perspective, like
is interesting.
kind of like what goes on and like what he does and everything. And he says he really enjoys it. And there's meetings that he'll go to, and yeah, there's like what is it? There are some secrets that like you can't disclose because it's showing you like it's showing the club as far as like you as a person, can we trust you? And if we can
Oh.
trust you like with the like this phrase or like this, this paragraph or whatever it is, if you don't disclose that, then yes, we can trust you. You're a trustworthy person. So it's kind of like showing like integrity and everything like that. The way people
Yeah.
like it was really interesting. I'll try to. I wish he was here. That wasn't the co-host that was going to be on tonight. But I'll if we
That
want
would
to
be
do
very
another,
interesting.
yeah, if we want to do another episode, we can get him on. He's on like every other episode, so it'd be really easy to get him on here and talk
Oh,
about it. If
cool.
you, yeah, so
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
My dad has a friend that has been trying to get him for years to get him to join the Masons, and he's a
yeah.
Mason, and my dad's like, no, I don't want to. I was like, quit it. I don't know what they do, but
Mhm.
uh, everybody listening should YouTube stripper at Masonic ritual, because there is this one. I don't know if it's real, but it looks real. There's a guy with all of that stuff in this big chair, and like, and we're just going crazy, and I'm like, well, if that's it, I'll join. It was like, whoa.
Oh, that's funny. I don't know if they do that in every meeting or not. I'm not sure.
only like once. It's a once a month thing.
Yeah.
Man,
Oh,
that gets. I wanna mention this one thing, but I think a friend of mine will get angry. So I'm gonna ask her if I can mention it sometime. But there's it's interesting. It has to do with how these organizations, and what you said about organizations. They give you something to see if they can trust you.
mhm.
It falls in line with that, but it's like way more fucked up, and it has to do with the government and someone she knows. I need to ask her first
Oh,
before I disclose.
yeah.
And she got stoned one night and told me, and I was like, "What?"
Really?
And but I can't divulge. I gotta ask her.
Okay. I really hope she's like, yeah, that's fine or whatever, because I'm really interested to see what it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask. I wish I could just do it. It like is so in vain with what we're talking about, and
Yeah.
but I'll ask and see.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I think with that, I think we pretty much covered it all and everything.
Yeah.
Seth, it was great talking with you. If you want to give like a little shout out to like where everyone can find you again, but it would also be, I'll put it in my description. Vice
Yeah.
versa, I'll give you our information so we can put it in yours, whatever. So
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, anybody can find me. It's STHHRS, pretty much on everything. That's my handle on Instagram. It's my website, www.sthhrs.com. And, TikTok and YouTube. Those are all my channels. I have a book that's going to come out eventually, and I do a bunch of, like, creepy videos and stuff like that if you're interested. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And Alex, I appreciate. I know we have this kind of co-host thing going on, but I appreciate talking with you. I'll be using this audio. Tell me your info so my listeners can find you guys.
oh yeah, so the podcast it's called That's Effin Weird. You can find us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. We're not so much on Facebook. We do have a Facebook account, but I don't think it's been touched for months. But yeah, really on any social media site, we throw up highlight videos, everything like that. Really any platform that your listeners probably have, we're on. We're on Spotify, like everything, iHeartRadio, just yeah, Podbean. That's where we post our videos. But yeah, that's it was really great talking with you. Thanks for having me on your show on your end too. I can't
Absolutely. I should probably plug the podcast too. It's called Seth's Alkahest. And you can find me on Spotify and what's the other one? Pocket Cast. And I'm going to try to get it on some other ones. But I don't want to make an Apple account. So it's
No?
not on Apple. It's not on Apple, but I'll get to it eventually.
Yeah. You're missing out on listeners.
I know. Well, I have a Apple account, that gets me the Apple TV thing, so I could watch. What's that really good show where the innies and the outies and they're in an office building and that's their own reality. Uh, uh,
I have no
they're
idea.
so they're in an office. I want to say something, but they're in an office and they get this chip or whatever in their head, and they can only their memory only lasts in that office place, and then their outie only remembers the outside. So this company has successfully divided the brain. Damn it! It's gonna drive me nuts. But anyway, and I got the Apple thing for that. And I locked myself out of my account. I don't know. I'm super paranoid. I'm super paranoid about these massive companies knowing my date of birth and all of my legitimate information. So I always put like a fake date, a fake this, a fake that, and I've totally forgot what my birthday was to confirm. So they're like charging me $5 a month, and I can't I can't watch my shows, and I don't know what it is, so I can't get on the Apple thing. I gotta make a new account, and I hate it. So that's why.
If you figure out the name of the show, please let me know. That sounds like a really interesting show.
Yeah, it's it's gonna take a minute. This is a little bit of dead air, but it's called Re something, and it's a really good show. Apple Severance. Yes,
Okay.
it is a very good show. I was on the edge of my seat. They're gonna make a season 2. I'm locked out of my account. I don't know what to do. So.
Well, we got till season 2 to figure it out.
Yeah. But does that mean that they're gonna always? I tried everything, and I think they keep charging me, and I can't get into the account. How do I pull my card from that? I need help, but anyway, it's not your responsibility. I'll figure it out.
Sounds good. Well, Seth, thanks for talking. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation. I hope we have more of them. You as the audience member, this is just for our end. Remember, we don't want stuff that's normal. We want stuff that's effing weird. I don't know if you do an outro, but by all means.
I don't. I have this weird like synth thing I made in the other room that I put in reverse, and it's like.
No, nice.
So I'll just put that on. People will hear it in a second.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. It was really fun. I appreciate it. It was a very good conversation.